In July 1995, over 8,000 Bosniak men and boys were killed after Bosnian Serb forces took the town of Srebrenica, a UN-declared safe area that a lightly armed Dutch peacekeeping battalion had been sent to protect, and could not. Two different international courts have since ruled that what happened there meets the legal definition of genocide. 30 years later, the government of the Bosnian Serb entity that controls the town has, as official policy, rejected that word. The Bosnian War from 1992 to 1995 followed Bosnia and Herzegovina's declaration of independence from a collapsing Yugoslavia and pitted the country's Bosniak-led government against Bosnian Serb forces, backed by Serbia, who sought to carve out and eventually unite Serbi-majority territory. The war killed over 100,000 people and displaced more than 2 million. The International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia convicted multiple Bosnian Serb leaders, including military commander Ratko Mladic and political leader Radovan Karadzic, of genocide specifically for Srebrenica. In 2007, the International Criminal Court of Justice separately ruled that genocide occurred there, while also finding in the same judgment that Serbia as a state had not directly committed it, only failed to prevent it and failed to cooperate with the tribunal afterward. 1992, Bosnia and Herzegovina declares independence. War begins almost immediately as Bosnian Serb forces, with backing from Belgrade, seize roughly 70% of the country's territory. 1992 to 1995, a 3-year siege of Sarajevo becomes one of the longest in modern warfare. April 1993, the UN Security Council declares Srebrenica and 5 other enclaves safe areas under UN protection. July 1995, Bosnian Serb forces under General Ratko Mladic overrun Srebrenica, separate men and boys from women and children, and kill more than 8,000 over the following days. December 1995, the Dayton Accords end the war, dividing Bosnia into 2 largely autonomous entities, the Bosniak Croat Federation and Republika Srpska, under one shared state. 2001 onward, the ICTY begins convicting Bosnian Serb officials of genocide for Srebrenica specifically. 2007, the ICJ issues its ruling. 2016 and 2017, Karadzic and Mladic receive final convictions and life sentences. 2024, Republika Srpska's parliament passes a resolution rejecting the genocide designation. The UN General Assembly, the same year, designates July 11th an International Day of Remembrance for the Srebrenica genocide. For Bosniaks, Srebrenica isn't a disputed historical episode. It's a legally settled one, established by more convictions and more courts than almost any other atrocity of the era. And organizations like the Mothers of Srebrenica have spent 3 decades identifying remains through DNA analysis and pressing for accountability precisely because the legal record is already so clear. In this frame, the open question was never whether genocide happened. It's why, 30 years and multiple final convictions later, senior officials in the very territory where it happened continue to hold public office while rejecting a finding that international courts reached independently more than once. Serbia's own government as a state points to a specific legal distinction from the 2007 ICJ ruling. The court that established genocide occurred at Srebrenica also ruled in the same judgment that Serbia itself was not directly responsible for committing it, only for failing to prevent it and for not fully cooperating with prosecutors afterward. Belgrade's official position rests on that distinction between individual perpetrators who were tried and convicted and the Serbian state. Republika Srpska's current political leadership goes considerably further than that legal distinction and has made contesting the genocide designation itself an explicit part of its official policy, including a 2024 parliamentary resolution and a 2026 submission to the UN Security Council challenging international oversight of Bosnia altogether. That position is not shared by the international courts that examine the same evidence and represents one of the only instances in this series where a government's official stance directly contradicts a matter of settled international law rather than offering a different interpretation of agreed facts. This series has built its entire format around cases where two sides agree on the underlying facts and disagree about what those facts mean. Srebrenica breaks that pattern in a way worth naming directly. This isn't a case of competing interpretations of an ambiguous event. It's a case where the legal question has been answered more than once by courts specifically built to answer it, and where part of the political response 30 years on has been to contest the finding itself rather than its meaning. That's a different kind of asymmetry than this series usually covers. Not a gap between two legitimate readings of the same evidence, but a gap between an international legal record and an official government position that rejects it outright. Most of the disputes in this series ask what a shared fact means, or what a treaty's fine print actually decided, or whether a ruling's ambiguity lets both sides claim it. Srebrenica asks a blunter question. What happens when the world's actual mechanism for settling a fact, international courts, operating with evidence, appeals, and time, reaches a conclusion and a government simply declines to accept it? Maybe that's the addition this episode makes, and it's a harder one than most. Not every disagreement in this series is between two positions with equal legitimacy. Sometimes the record is already closed, and what's left to explain isn't the atrocity. It's why closing the record didn't close the argument. A genocide established by two separate international courts, a state found responsible for failing to prevent it rather than committing it, and an official rejection of that finding that is itself now 30 years and counting. Next time, we go to the war that ended French rule in North Africa, Algeria's independence struggle, and a colonial relationship neither country has ever fully finished arguing about.